The following clip is from a Patreon exclusive. To see the full video and many more, go to patreon.com/GERIMI and become a subscriber.
But also the bulge over here. This is something that I look at this and I'm like, really, George? That much? Usually, a lot of times I will see something and I'll see it in a book, and I question stuff sometimes. I'll look at it like, is this really right? This doesn't make sense to me? And I find that it's worth questioning the things that don't make sense to you, not because you may know more than these masters, but you'll look at it and you'll realize, oh, it's exposing areas in which my understanding is not quite to that level. Or it may simply be that a particular concept, a mental way of describing and breaking something down to simple forms or objects just doesn't work for your brain, and then you may look at a different art book or a different instructor or a different artist and say, oh wait, I see how they're describing this thing, and that makes so much more sense to me than the way I've seen it in this other book. So it's not nuts to question Bridgman. Somebody pointed out to me once that in one of his books, there's a point where he drew a leg and it started as the inside of the leg at the top. And by the time you got down to the ankle, it was the outside of the leg. And, you know, I don't actually remember the specific drawing, which book it was in, but that really put them off to Bridgman. Whereas I was just like, you know what? I've made that mistake in a drawing before. Well, not that mistake, but putting a left hand on a right arm. People make those kinds of mistakes. Does it mean your artistic license should be revoked? You should never be allowed to draw again? I know you just think, well, they're an instructor, they should be above reproach. But, no one's above reproach. We're all human beings. And hopefully we're all capable of compassion and forgiveness. And also, that Bridgman thing to me is apocryphal only in the fact that I didn't care enough to want to look up the actual drawing my friend was talking about. They could have been mistaken. A lot of times I don't take people on their word or their face value because I'm trusting. It's because unless it's something that I am super interested in, or I feel like I have a invested level in proving them or myself right or wrong, a lot of times I'm just like, oh, okay. I just let it go. I got better things to do than, live with this way. I've got enough stuff that I'm chasing on my own, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. Stuff about, drawing, like in the case of these diagrams, writing, constantly studying, reading books, learning more about the business aspect of being an artist, which is weird to be at this late age, studying things that, you would have hoped I was taught in high school and college. But, again, if artists were particularly interested in being businessmen, learning business, they probably wouldn't. I think it's hard to get the mindset of the creative into wanting to learn business because you really just want to go and draw. I mean, if they had classes for artists, business classes for artists in college, specifically geared towards this is the business of being a creative, I'd like to believe that I would have taken them, but I know how stubborn I am now, and I was twice as stubborn in my late teens, early 20s, and I may well have said, Fuck that class. So, a lot of times it takes years of growth and maturity to learn the value of things that people often try to share with you when you're younger. And I think I've probably got this hip up too high. It's interesting because the way that Bridgman's got it here, there's muscle surrounding the head of the femur, the long bone leg. But we don't normally see that. We may see a little bit of a divot where the muscle drops away. You can see the bone on the surface, but he's almost drawing it like here's the bone and it's sticking out and there's just all this meat hanging off of it. And what's interesting for me is trying to decide how much of that is affect versus, oh, is that actually, because he's trying to make things clear to us, much in the way that Bern Hogarth gets criticized for the fact that all of his muscles look like they're flexing at the same time. This, believe it or not, I feel is a Bridgman equivalent of that. And again, I know, who am I to, and I don't say criticize, who am I, but who am I to, well, it's a critique. Well, it's not a critique, it's an observation, because I'm wondering whether this is something that to be incorporated into my own work, or whether it's something that Bridgman is making clear for students like myself studying, making it overly clear in this drawing so that when I'm doing my own drawings, whether they're from life or imagination, that I can be aware of what's happening there without necessarily having to draw it with the level of description that Bridgman is bringing to it. See, this right here is very soothing to me because I've been having a lot of struggle with my my masses, my volumes, making them feel three-dimensional. And just this fact of sitting here studying Bridgman and looking at his masses and say, okay, he's clearly described a mass here. Let me try to understand his masses and see if I can get that down in my drawing. And oh wait, that's not it. Erase this a little bit, reshape that. That's closer. This back and forth. I'm having a dialogue with Bridgman's work. In a way, these studies are an interrogation, not a police-like interrogation, but it's me having a conversation with the artist who originally drew them. With my lines, I'm questioning their decisions, and I put down my line, and I either get it accurately, or I don't get it, and I say, well, wait, what are you trying to say? Or I get it, but it looks weird, and I'm like, this looks like what you're describing, but obviously I don't understand the concept because it doesn't feel like what you're describing. I'm having a conversation in charcoal with George Bridgman. And that is a very pleasing thing. And I think that as an instructor, I think he would be pleased to feel that someone was viewing his drawings in that manner, that it is not a dead language like Latin, but that it's alive and it's vital. I can speak to the drawing through my sketches. I can interrogate his work through my sketches. And I can say, George, what is this? I don't get it. And he'll say, here, look at this. Look at what you're missing. Look at where you're not drawing what I'm really saying. Look at where you're misinterpreting. And look at where you've got it.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see the full video, head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy and become a subscriber.